Let's open up with the story that came the way of, once again, Insider Gaming. This was written by Mike Straw. It is an exclusive to Insider Gaming, which, of course, is Tom Henderson's website. The title reads, Exclusive. Microsoft and Activision deny report regarding financial performance of Activision Blizzard King, as well as Xbox Game Pass. Now, I'm just going to read verbatim from the article, folks, so bear with me. It says, on Wednesday, a report from the website The Information claimed that Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard hasn't resulted in the growth the company expected with its Xbox business at this point. The report quotes paywall. Now, mind you, I did not pay for this. I pulled it from the website. One analyst who is a portfolio manager named Danny Fish as saying Activision has been disappointing. Now, this is the key. He is a a portfolio manager. He's a hedge manager. What he does is manage monies invested in Microsoft. He's not on the board. He does not have a phone call to Phil, to Satya, or to Amy Hood. He is a funds manager, which means that he is managing a bunch of invested money. According to him, Activision has been disappointing, not disappointed, meaning that he's not speaking for Activision or anybody on the board for Microsoft. And that is the story that was run by many people in this industry. And if you did run with it, we can see that the narrative was simply spoken to drive clicks with lies. Because again, there is a stark difference, ladies and gentlemen, between Activision being disappointed and Activision has been disappointing, meaning that they haven't made as much money as the hedge fund manager wanted. So what I decided to do, because I'm all about evidence-based conversation, is pull up the exact quotes from these hedge fund managers. And it goes on to say this: Activision has been disappointing, said Denny Fish, a Janice Henderson Investors portfolio manager who oversees two funds that included a total of more than $800 million in Microsoft stock as of November. And, quote, it's a business that had some degree of consistency over like a 3 to 5 year period, but was highly volatile from year to year because you're so dependent on the big releases like Call of Duty. Now, the other the hedge fund manager goes on to say, and again, this comes the way of Gus Zinn, who is a portfolio manager at Macquarie's Science and Technology Fund. I just think the majority of the game market doesn't really want Game Pass like the one Microsoft is offering, which is, and again, if you want to know how much money he holds in regards to the hedge fund that he is managing, well, it's roughly $400 million in Microsoft stock and has kept its Microsoft position roughly flat over the past year. So because of that, Ham Solo, these two hedge fund managers are interviewed by The Information, and the way the original story was written, as if we were hearing from board members, people that sit on the board at Microsoft that invested $75+ billion into Activision Blizzard King. And there were many people in the industry. And again, we don't do the names thing here because I don't like that kind of smoke and I don't need it to sell the brand. We're here to talk about facts. And the facts were just written and read to you live on the air. I want to get your take on how this was turned into Xbox Game Pass not being profitable, Xbox Game Pass being a service that the market doesn't want, Activision board members being disappointed with the sales, Microsoft board members being disappointed with the purchase of Activision. It is a very stark difference from hedge managers being disappointed, and the fact that their funds have stayed flat, meaning they haven't had a lot of profitability versus what we are being told by games media, and more importantly, the knucklehead community that represent PlayStation in the worst way possible. Let's get your thoughts.
All right. So Boom, or panel, anybody answer me this question. What month is it?
It's January. Is the last time I checked.
Yeah, it's tax season.
Indeed.
There's all kinds of tax. And there's one special tax that we haven't talked about for a little bit.
Please, by all means.
And it's that Xbox tax. And they gotta pay the players every year, or else they get nothing. But it has, and see, the thing is Xbox always gives you the return, or the last few years they've given us the return, right? We got the return when we got Hi-Fi Rush, right? And see, here's another thing that happens every year, but people get very, very, very staunch tunnel vision, right? Every year before GDC, all these companies dispel dead weight, or what they call dead weight, before they have to go to investors, right? So what did Microsoft kind of try to do to remedy that issue that they have with, bad publicity during that time, seeing that they do it every year pretty much? They put a developer direct right there.
Yep.
Right? There's a purpose behind why they do stuff in certain times, right? A load of bad news is going to happen. You get it a week prior to the developer direct every year that I've noticed so far.
Like clockwork, sir.
Like clockwork. It happens repeatedly. A week prior to 2 weeks prior, there is a release of a bunch of people from Microsoft. But there's also a release from people from Sony, from all these third-party studios. There's probably some from Nintendo. We know that there's a ton within just the media industry in general. It's the beginning of the year. They're starting off fresh. They got new ideas that they're putting in place. CES just happened. So, they got a lot of new ideas and juices flowing. GDC's coming up. They got to look at them. They got to look at and make sure the numbers are right. So when they go to report it, things are looking as good as they possibly can for investors to be like, hell yeah, let's go. Let me invest a little bit further into this, right? But we tend to always skip over what Sony did or what anybody else did. It's just bad Microsoft, right? And
are you saying Xbox bad, PlayStation good?
Essentially, we see it all the time, right? I thought it was hilarious. I think it was a year or two ago. I made a video talking about all this stuff, and oh no, it's Alex was like, these people talking about Xbox tax are goofy. Destin Legary called me out specifically, called me and Post Up out specifically on his podcast and said, there is no Xbox tax. You guys are just tripping. And we've slowly seen Destin look around like he's like, uh-oh, I'm feeling a little taxing out here. And then Alex just a couple days ago had a show where he's like, well, I think I'm starting to kind of believe this Xbox tax thing now. So I'm just like, hey, we've been here. We've been here telling you all this. And even you guys that have so many more followers and so many more people that give you guys all this inside information, y'all didn't see it for yourselves. Just this guy that sits at home in the middle of Iowa could see it from a mile away. Just like, goodness gracious, y'all pander real heavy-handedly for these other platforms, even when they fail. Concord is forgotten about already. But we had to feel Redfall all the way up until Activision was sold.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm just trying to say, there is a double standard. To hell with whatever somebody else tells you. When you feel the double standard and you see the double standard, there's a double standard. Doesn't matter if somebody wants to be ignorant or not.
So
That's all I
basically,
got.
what you're saying, if it looks like a fart, sounds like a fart, and smells like a fart, it's probably a fart. So listen, just admit it. You did it. That's it. End of story. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but it is what it is. And I like the way you put it down. It is, again, it's very evident that there is something afoot here. And again, I know that for a lot of people, there's going to be people in the chat like, oh, you guys, with your Xbox tax. Folks, I don't know how to make it any more clear. We are being very forward thinking. I think we're being pretty transparent about why we believe that it exists. And I think it's documented well enough. Crispy Bomb, I want to bring you in on the conversation. So this, apparent or so-called Xbox tax, right? Now, I don't think it's been ever this apparent than what's going on with Sony. Because again, if you look back to how many articles that were written just based on the fact that a website called The Information quoted hedge fund managers, that part was left out on many of the articles. A lot of the articles were driven towards it. These opinions were coming from Microsoft board members. And I think it got so bad that Microsoft, who normally doesn't say a peep, literally responded with quotes. So let me get over to that. Now, I just want to give, I'm all about context, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to read again from the article that Mike Straw wrote. And it goes on to say this: breaking the numbers down, Activision has accounted for over 85% of each quarter's revenue increase. It also shows that over the last 3 quarters, a slight, steady growth outside of Activision's impact from a low of 1 point to 8 points as of Q1 FY 2025. Basically, what they are saying is that even without the Activision monies, Xbox has consistently shown growth. It has not regressed in any way. But here is a quote from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who alluded to the purchase's benefit during the company's Q1 2025 earnings call last October about the acquisition and gaming's growth as a whole. This is, I quote, "We set new records for monthly active users in the quarter as more players than ever play our games across devices and on the Xbox platform." He said this while he was saying that the business is positioned for long-term growth. This is the CEO of Microsoft. And we also, I don't have her quote in front of me, but right after Satya Nadella's quote, Amy Hood, who is the CFO, made a monstrous statement. I will try to find it, but you have to understand, folks, there are no lies here, because the stock market and the stock pricing and the buying and selling of that stock go based on this leader's words. So if he were to, say something false, they would be in big trouble. So obviously the numbers don't lie. It is amazing to me that so many of the gaming press ran with this Xbox is dead, Game Pass isn't making money, and Activision was a miss. It is shocking to me. What are your thoughts?
Well, it boggles my mind, because I feel like people don't publicly trading at this point is so easy to do. I mean, I think many of us, in this chat, on the panel, have traded something because it's so much easier than it used to be. And
you can do it on your phone, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and it's actually crazy, because you could just look at the market cap, and we'll just start there. $3.19 trillion, Microsoft. Okay, that's their market cap. Okay, what is Sony? Oh my God. Oh man, 126.99 billion. And trust me, people have said, "Oh, they separated their stocks." I can't find any other Sony corp but Sony themselves, so I don't know what you're talking about. So the hedge fund managers. Okay, if they're mad, fine, because they have more market cap than Sony themselves. But why are you calling them out? Microsoft's making you money. They're trading at over $400 right now. $400 per share, people. Like, stop with the narrative. Xbox ain't dying anytime soon. If anything, they're going the Netflix approach, because Netflix was founded in 1997, people. Okay? And they just became profitable, last year, which somebody called me out on that, and they were correct. Last year, they became profitable. 1997.
For the first time?
Come on, people. Like, and I'm going to tell you right now, all these stands love to act like they're financial advisors and the greatest thing in the world. But and engineers, and you know who I'm talking about, and y'all going to sit there and act like you're on the right side of what is happening. Because guess what? We can't hate Microsoft because we play on Game Pass, people. And we got games. How about that? We got games coming while you're canceling studios. Honestly, if God of War came out, great. That's cool. Let's see what happens in the live service aspect. No, cancel that. What are we doing here? Okay. Like, I hate people that call out their own hypocritical stuff, but I love that Sony trashes them like within 24 hours all the time. It's actually incredible. So I look at it and I say, stop talking about Microsoft so much. Like, seriously, like, they're not worried. Trust me. Like, they're beholden to their shareholders. As I told Paul, sorry, Paul Tassi, it is what it is. Like, it's unethical, and it's also like probably going to break some laws if you go and tell your shareholders everything's great after having such a supposed legitimate article, which they corrected, by the way. Just think about that. Okay. So stop looking at the clickbait. Start looking at the tea leaves that can read you something. And it might be a storybook of the problems that Microsoft has, is they have too many people right now. They probably do. And it sucks to hear like layoffs and all that stuff, but you're talking absorbing a huge, like the largest purchase they've ever done. Okay. Like, yes, they could have, they could have purchased many other companies and they didn't do it. They purchased Activision Blizzard. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you look at the charts for game sales last year, Call of Duty's in like the top 5 and everything.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Except where it can't release, which is fine, which I think the Switch 2 might hopefully fill that void, and they're going to make money there.
That's probably going to be a launch title for that.
See
for that
layoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Would we rather see layoffs, or would we rather see them say, hey, certain games are going to go everywhere? And that's the way it is. And I'm okay with that, especially if you like, we hear all the rumors like Gears of War Ultimate Edition going to the PlayStation. Fine. I got no problem with that. I don't. I play that game over and over again. Multiplayer, single player, whatever it was. Like, there's so many multiplayer modes in that game. Like, these guys are starving for multiplayer, for the love of God. I mean, you got IPs like SOCOM sitting there, like, why not bring it back out? You want a gas game? There you go. But that's my point.
We're gonna get into that, because again, I don't think that you're going to see a more stark picture of two companies going in opposite directions. And again, I know we're going to get into it in the second half. PlayStation has set themselves back 3 to 5 years with all these cancellations. And if you don't believe me, We're going to break that down. But Fuzzy,
multiple. Well, okay, going back on PlayStation, multiple years. You understand? Like that costs money, people.
Millions.
And we're not talking like, hey, like PlayStation's going away, because we're not like that. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, stands. We're not like that. Okay. Instead, we're saying you need to pivot, and you need to pivot well.
Yep.
And you know what? Maybe, saying remasters should be bought on the PC, people, because they need to release games on other platforms. Doesn't mean that Microsoft was wrong for doing it years ago. That's the point. We're not saying that it's a bad thing. We're saying it's a good thing. And they need to realize we want PlayStation around. You don't get it. We are gamers, people. We want PlayStation around because we need checks and balances in the gaming community. And we need somebody to do something a little different, but also, hey, time to, follow the lead. And that's what Microsoft's just ahead. That's it. But that doesn't mean that they're, completely not going to do something wrong, because we've seen it so many freaking times. So instead of being a stan or being a gamer, those are two different things. And I think everybody on this panel, and I think most of the people in this chat, are just straight up gamers and want to see games come out. And we got games, people.
Competition for the dollar breeds
competition.
Innovation.
It's right. Innovation, indeed, 1,000%. And again, this is, the reason why Microsoft is where they're at is because they got curb stomped, ladies and gentlemen. They got their asses handed to them on a platter, coming off of the Xbox 360, which was a triumphant return to what we all love about gaming, right? They had exclusives, they had exclusive content, they were the cool system, they had Call of Duty, they had it going on. People wanted to put their games and play on the Xbox 360. Now, granted, console sales did come into question, and the PlayStation, the PS3, even though it started out pretty bad, eventually overtook them. But that's because they sold those consoles for 3 to 5 years more than the 360 did. Mind you, got to remember the 360 had the red ring of death. It should have been over for Xbox, and it wasn't. But I do want to move on, continue this conversation. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's go to you, and then we'll bring in Korkenstein on the back end. This is one of those conversations that I find to be hilarious because there were narratives. There were quite a bit of articles written by some pretty prominent members of the journalistic community. And I do use the word journalist loosely because when you have certain journalists quote tweeting trolls, I think we got problems. And I think that ultimately shows how childish said journalist is. You don't quote trolls. That, I think, is a bad look and really does show that you are immature and that you are lowering yourself to a troll-level community that just wants to see the world burn. And that is embarrassing. And you should, in fact, be ashamed. But I digress. Let's talk about it. Again, these are hedge fund managers who are disappointed because they weren't making 40%. Rather, they're making 12%. And somehow or another, their disappointment was laser focused and transferred over to Activision and Microsoft being disappointed. I just read a couple of quotes from these hedge managers. Very easy to understand, but I understand why they shifted because, well, there is an Xbox tax. It does exist, and this is another perfect example. Let's get your hot take.
Well, I'll start off with the investment aspect. I'm not the biggest investor out there. As you guys know, I'm retired. And one of the things I did was in 2014, I invested in everything that was in my house, as far as if I bought a particular appliance, electronic, the car brand that was in the driveway, I bought shares. Like, I think it was Loyal3 made it easy to do that, and other apps made it easy to do that. Now I have a Charles Schwab account and moved everything over there. But in 2014, when I bought a good bit of Sony stock and Microsoft stock, Microsoft was only $75 a share.
Yep.
Each one of those shares is now $420 some dollars.
Yeah.
The share I bought of Sony was $50. Now it split not too long ago. So for each share, you got 5. But if you add those up, it only doubled in value. So $50 turned into $100. It's basically 5 shares of 20. So who's hurting? Definitely not Microsoft at that point. Maybe those, hedge fund managers only really invested in Microsoft within the past couple of years. Like I said, I did it 10 years ago. It definitely paid off. And Tesla was another one that paid off, but that's a whole nother story. But all of that aside, the Xbox tax, we've talked about it. Numerous people in the community have talked about it. Shout out to 3-Bit. He pointed out one of the key things, and from a developer standpoint, one of the things or insights that he alerted us to was that a lot of these journalists go to companies only asking for the PlayStation version of the game because that's their preferred console. Either they grew up on PlayStation or that's their preferred platform. So obviously, if your preferred platform is a certain brand, you're going to always see that in a better light. Now, you could be critical of it, but knowing that they blacklist you at that point means that you're probably going to bite your tongue a good bit. As opposed to Xbox, they're never going to blacklist people unless you just about set the console on fire on social media or something like that. But even then, I think they would still send you a review copy just to get reviews out there. But in the grand scheme of things, you would think between journalists who always claim that they're above this fanboyism or have this integrity about them would stray away from quoting trolls or fanboys within the community. But it never ceases to amaze me that they want to deny the Xbox tax exists, but then the same people that want to deny it as well on the fanboy side, they'll quote them as examples as opposed to just saying, well, let's take Hi-Fi Rush, for example. There were a couple of review sites that said Hi-Fi Rush just didn't jive with them. Maybe it was the music or the rhythm or whatever. Maybe they don't have rhythm. I don't know. Whatever the case may be is once it came to PlayStation, all of a sudden everything clicked. Now, of course, they could say it was the DualSense controller, but anybody that has a PS5 and has a DualSense controller versus like an Xbox Elite controller, there's not really much more going on, except for if you're playing Astrobot. Astrobot's about the only real thing that displays what the DualSense is capable of. All other games pale in comparison. It's just basic rumble stuff. Yeah, it might be in certain areas of the controller as opposed to just at the base of it, but it's not game-changing enough to be like, oh, well, when it was on Xbox or PC, this game was a 7, but now it's a 10 because of DualSense and it's on my PlayStation. Really? There was no more fixes. I mean, about the only real fix was maybe the shadows were slightly better because remember, that was a thing. Much like GTA with the, extra blades of grass.
It's like giving a game a 10 because, oh, man, this one on Xbox has quick resume, though. Like stop.
Great point.
But that's the thing. But there were people out there trying to downplay quick resume. Shout out to was it Old School Fools or whatever that new guy that was a PlayStation cat that his wife picked him up. Xbox Series X.
I believe his name is Elliot.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Like that was somebody that was blinded by this Xbox tax in the media as well as just fanboyism as far as not knowing what the other side had until he actually has hands on. And to have like Reforged talk about, oh, well, quick resume is no different than, putting it in rest mode. It's like, how can you even bring yourself to say something that stupid, knowing that people are going to check you? But I guess your audience is either that stupid or they don't choose to even bother gaming beyond the box that they have in front of them, which is, it sounds like his audience is just PlayStation only cats for the most part. But I guarantee you when, Windows 12 comes out and quick resume is actually on PC at that point through Windows, then there might be a little bit of a different change as far as, oh, well, quick resume really is a game changer. Then they'll be asking for it on PlayStation. But because it's only on Xbox, nobody needs that until they do or until they discover how great it is. But, these hedge fund managers are more concerned with money as opposed to health of the business. Many hedge fund managers will drain a company dry to focus on their profits as opposed to the lifespan of that company. Because If that company goes bankrupt, they don't care. They can just invest their money somewhere else the next day. So to take their word as if, oh, that's the only thing that was, going on with Xbox, considering, okay, we're going to talk about at some point the whole, Satya thought about closing Xbox down in 2021. It's 2025 now. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Right.
Sure, it could have happened in Bizarro World or in another, alternate universe or something, but in the grand scheme of things, that's old news. It's irrelevant at this point. Xbox is flourishing. They have a roadmap. Sony, on the other hand, they have a movie roadmap. And that should have been all the information you knew before even getting to, Yoshida's comments or lack thereof of things like the PSVR 2 comments and stuff. You should have known when Sony doesn't bring anything to the table as far as for the PlayStation platform, other than showing a highlight reel of 30 years for, the CES show that was just happened. All they did was focus on taking those game IPs and getting other money. Since they can't seem to get the money from the gaming aspect, they're going to get the money from the movie or music aspect. Nobody had any real questions or insights on that. Like, where was the gaming media? Like, if Xbox did that, and we know when they did something similar in 2013 when it was all about TV, they were all up in arms about how dare a gaming company talk about anything other than gaming. But now it's great. The Last of Us series season 2 and an anime for my favorite game, even though I don't know if I'm happy about the sequel that's coming out. It's supposedly this year. Yeah, it's like...
Yo, Fuzzy, let me remind you of something real quick.
Yeah, what's up?
Remember, ever since the launch, we've been told how successful Horizon Forbidden West is, yet Yoshida comes out here just a couple of days ago and says, yeah, that shit was a bust.
Pretty much.
We've seen the arguments back and forth with the guy from Ben Studios. Is like, we actually reached the 10 million on our own without even doing a pack-in. They had to do Horizon Zero Dawn as a pack-in to get those numbers. So what are we even talking about? Like, if they had greenlit that game to have a sequel, it would have already come out at this point. Now you're 5 years down the road, still, twiddling your thumbs and wondering, well, when is Intergalactic going to come? Is it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? When is, The Last of Us 3 coming out? Or is it going to be, and I've seen people joke about this, will we get the reveal of Last of Us 3 as a TV series season as opposed to the game? It might drop before the game actually drops. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, if you're a PlayStation fan and you're not vocal about, hold them accountable and what's going on, then you're full of bull. It doesn't make any more sense to look over at our side as far as Xbox and say, oh, well, they should do this. And they need to port these games. And what's Sony doing? Like, obviously, if you're more concerned with Xbox porting games to your platform, that goes to show that Sony isn't taking care of you. You wouldn't even want to bother looking at Xbox games if you were being taken care of properly through Sony. But we all know that's not the case. But I've rambled enough. It's time to give Korkenstein a little bit to talk about as well. But man, it's unbelievable.
It's shocking that it got this far. Korkenstein, listen, I got a couple more quotes here from the article from Insider Gaming, one of which is pretty interesting. Says, regarding the report's claim, hold on a sec. Now, the report, as we read it live on the air, one of the things, and of course, I have to name the name here because Crispy Bomb went right back at him. I'm talking about Paul. Now, Paul Tassi is the one that quoted this fanboy, which again, he's a journalist. He works at a pretty pristine, paper or online website. I say paper because I'm old. And one of the things that he was challenging, which is very odd to me, is the 500 MAUs or the monthly active players, right? Now, the article says that they close by saying, again, the criticism that engagement on Xbox platform is that, and again, this is why I don't understand the criticism, because Satya Nadella himself, after talking about the success of Game Pass, confirmed that the Xbox platform is at an all-time high, and that they're well over 500 million monthly players over and this is going over last year's numbers. According to Satya Nadella, we've seen consistent growth in monthly users on cloud as well. Now, Paul Tassi tried to separate that, and this is, to me, very weird. Because I know that, if you want to break it down as to where the profitability is coming from, as per 61 points came from Activision, 8 points came from Xbox. I get all of that, but if we're being fair here, if we're being logical, Microsoft owns Activision, they own King, they own Blizzard, they own Bethesda, right? They own all these things. So when they make money, it doesn't go into the coffers of Bethesda and Activision. It goes into the coffers who owns those companies. That is Microsoft. So trying to split it, saying that, it was only X, Y, and Z monthly active users, and they're just using King as a pad, is dumb, because they're one company. One company's numbers all work under one umbrella. Trying to separate it to address a fanboy narrative is stupid. I'm sorry. Corkenstein, I want to get your hot take on this. Now, again, there's been a lot of really good ones, but I'm very interested to get yours, because this is as blatant as an Xbox tax as you can get, especially when you bring the press into it, where they try to blind us with, there are no Xbox tax. There's no such thing. You're making it up. And even people like, no, it's Alex, and Ham Solo had made mention of it. I watched his video. He has even come around to the point where, you know what? The Xbox tax is real. Let's get your hot take.
Oh yeah, it's 100% been real for a long, long time. There's certain things that people have held Xbox accountable for that they don't even hold PlayStation accountable for. It's not until Xbox does it, and then they get all this. I mean, we've said it before. I've said it for the last year I've been on your show. Xbox does something, they get a ton of heat, and then all of a sudden PlayStation does it. Now it's acceptable. Oh yeah, right. This is just the way the industry is going. Multi-platform is going to be another one of those things. There's no way around it. We'll talk about Sony and their absolute mess that they're in, but that's just what it is. They're going to have to go multi-plat. They already have Horizons on Switch. Come on, people. The writing's there. You can kick and fight all you want. But to go back to this article, and yeah, like you said, Paul Tassi, now you're looking stupid, Paul. You're looking stupid. You're over here. I'm sorry. I'm going to bring the smoke here. You're quote tweeting known console warriors. And rather than, say, hey, guess what? I messed up. I didn't have all the info. Kind of take a little bit of the high road and show a little bit, of journalistic integrity. You're going to sit there and double down. Just what are you doing? What are you doing? You're supposed to be a voice in the gaming industry, not somebody that perpetuates console warring. And now you're looking stupid. Because look at this. This story, even still, for these hedge fund managers to doom and, do all this stuff, I guarantee you, I bet you, the hundreds of millions of dollars they have Microsoft stock still. If Microsoft was really in that much of a trouble, what would they do? In a company
that sold it off, brother. That has sold it off.
But guess what? I guarantee you they still have those stocks. And because they're making money. It's a stupid narrative that somebody spun out of control, took out of context. And it doesn't help when you have people that, I'm gonna straight out say it, journalists that are perpetuating console war narratives. It doesn't help. Stop. Just stop it. And it's always like clockwork. Every year. Xbox has something great that comes out, Dev Direct or the showcase or something. All of a sudden, there's a breaking news report that, Xbox dead, Xbox is in trouble, Xbox is doing this. Clockwork. I guarantee you before the showcase happens, Go ahead. You guys can timestamp this, whatever. There's going to be some breaking story from some journalist or some whatever publication that's going to doom Xbox going into the showcase or try and doom Xbox going into the showcase. It happens every year. And it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think anything here, you guys have all got really, really great points. Even, like I said, Ham Solo was saying that other people are now coming around to the Xbox tax. And it's been something that has always been happening. And you know what? I'm glad the Xbox tax was there, because look at the Microsoft and Xbox that we have now. People held them to a standard. People held them accountable. And now we have things like Game Pass. We have Play Anywhere. What would it do for Nintendo and PlayStation to have those similar kind of things? Yeah, PlayStation, PlayStation has the Walmart Game Pass. It is what it is. They tried to make it, but they don't have day and date. They don't got day and date. What if PlayStation had day and date? Because these consumers and these fanboys held them accountable. Nintendo as well. They have probably one of the worst anti-consumer practices that I know, and they stifle. People are so scared to go after Nintendo because of fear of blacklist. And it's what happens if you actually hold these companies accountable, especially you as journalists that have the reach. You get things that are better. Crispy Bomb said it as well. We don't want PlayStation to go away. Competition is good. We need these people to fight for our money. That's where you guys are kind of missing, like some of the fanboys are missing. These companies are fighting for our money, but when you're not holding them accountable, all you're doing is like, here, just take my wallet, take as much as you want. They're ripping you off by you not holding them accountable because they have no reason to fight. They have no reason to be competitive. Stop. Just hold these people accountable, ask for better things, and you'll get value for your money.
Yeah.